Time now to get the latest trends in dive retailing, travel, and training with Level Up, the podcast of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine. Now, here's your host, Scuba Radio's Greg the Divemaster.
That is me. I am Greg the Divemaster, usually doing Scuba Radio every Saturday, 3 to 5 Eastern Time. But today we're going to talk business to business with Level Up, the official podcast of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine, the man behind the madness, Willie Cline, and his son, Britton. Willie, Britton, welcome. How you doing, buddy? Or buddies, I should say.
See ya, yeah. And you know, before we get started, we have two birthdays we have to say happy birthday to.
All right.
Neil Watson and Jerry Beatty, because they just recently had a birthday.
That's
so,
true.
Hey, and
Happy
Neil, of course, is our
birthday.
editor at large, you know.
You got to get that in there. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
they actually celebrate a birthday on the same day.
Exact same day. That's
exactly 10 years apart. Congrats to the dive god and Mr. Beatty for sure for making it another year. Okay, so what do we got on the agenda today there, Willie? What do you think?
Britton's got a little word he's going to say, and then we'll kind of kick us off here. Britton?
Yes, thanks, guys. Just super quickly, I wanted to tell you guys about our newest YouTube series, Level Up from Behind the Counter. We sit down with dive store owners, managers all over the country to hear just a little bit about how they're running their businesses, the wins, the challenges, and the ideas they're coming up with in the middle of the night. All things that you could even implement in your own shop. But so far, we've had some really great conversations with folks like Rich Thomas in Dallas, Bob Hathaway in Missouri, Pat Hammer in Illinois, and Michael Connors in Michigan as well. And Michael's actually with us today talking about his article in this month's issue of the magazine. But if you are a dive retailer and you want to share a little bit of your story, just drop me a line. It's Britton@ScubaDivingIndustry.com, and we'll go ahead and get you scheduled. And if you're heading to DEMA, don't forget to stop by booth 935, where we're going to be filming our own live shows every single day. So stay tuned for that as well. And if you want to check out some of the other behind the counters that we've done, new episodes are coming out every week for dive retailers by dive retailers. So hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel and go ahead and join our conversation. But guys, that's all I got. I'll hand it back to you and enjoy the rest.
So
Well, that's a lot. Yeah.
Something special we're going to be doing with Greg is we're going to give everybody that if you don't have the chance to come to the show, a glimpse of what he does in the morning. So that's going to be
God
cool.
help
We're
you.
gonna do that every morning, and it's not going to be his whole show, but it'll be some pieces of his show. So kind of everybody gets a chance to experience that true DEMA show excitement in just 67 days.
Right.
So with that, why don't we launch from Dallas, Texas to Orlando, all the way across the big Atlantic to the Azores Island. That
That's
was
right.
better, right, Cathryn?
Yeah. Cathryn Castle Garcia
it.
with us once again, a diving extraordinaire, marketing guru, and she's written in page 22 of the latest issue, Going Gonzo, using unconventional. I love this. Using unconventional marketing strategies to grow your dive business. So, what does Going Gonzo actually mean, Cathryn? I'm almost afraid to ask.
That's a good one.
I know, right? Because I could say anything. Well, first of all, I'm going to start by saying what Gonzo is not. It's not prank pulling, and it's not stunt. It's not anything that you would do as a business person or as an individual to shock or offend anyone.
Okay. So at least I got that Muppet
yeah.
scene where the guy's being jettisoned out of a cannon.
Yeah, right.
That's because that was the first thing I thought of.
Yeah, Gonzo from the Muppets is not real. I hate to say that. I hate to break that to you, Greg, but he's an imaginary character. So he's a non-human entity, and that's all just for fun. But no, we're not advocating launching anybody out of a can.
I do want to see this, though. Maybe that might be a stunt we'd try to pull off at the DEMA show. Kick it off, have me jettison out of a cannon. What do you? Not me. One of my staff that I could spare. How about that?
That could be arranged. I know some people in Florida.
Yes.
So it's in your backyard, but I know maybe some people you don't know.
Yeah.
So,
well, and there's a few people I'd like to shoot out of a
we can
cannon,
do.
but that's a whole nother story, whole nother show. What does this mean in a marketing standpoint?
Well, I use an ABCs, ABCS And my definition of Gonzo is marketing that is audacious, it's bold and brave, it's clever, leaning towards the crazy side, like, wow, that's crazy. And the S is for slightly silly. Because even though we're in the business of being business people, it doesn't pay to take ourselves too seriously. We want to get serious about our marketing, but we also want to have it be lighthearted and a lot of fun. And what we're doing is taking the element of surprise plus creativity plus a little fun to really make our workplace and our marketing efforts approachable. We want to be the place where everybody wants to hang out. So Gonzo Marketing, when I do that in the DEMA sponsored seminar, it's literally going to be really fast paced. We're going to walk you through a lot of ways to incorporate Gonzo Marketing into your business strategy in ways that are creative, simple, and also really articulate your marketing message and make it easy to share. Because you don't want to be doing Gonzo just for the sake of having fun. And then at the end of it, nobody knows who you are, what your business does, or why you should be doing business with them. So you want to generate the excitement, but also captivate them. And the way I like to say it, grab people's hearts by the throat and make them really feel like they want to hang out with you and want to invest in your business. So that's Gonzo.
I love it.
And I'm going to say a couple more things about that because I love your quote. By lighting up emotions like joy and curiosity, we create a buzz that can make our marketing go viral. And that's so amazing. And one of the suggestions that Cathryn has, and this works for every business in this dive industry. It's not just retailers, it's not just resorts, but she has the concept of capitalizing on calendars, on holidays, such as National Margarita Day, one of my favorite days in the world in February. And then you got National Bubble Wrap Appreciation Day. Didn't know about that one, but the concept is very, very solid. So Jeff, as a former dive shop owner, I'm sure you can appreciate the value of jumping on those kinds of holidays to drive business.
It's amazing what people will celebrate, right? I'm usually the donut day guy, but
yes,
Every day is donut day, isn't it?
And by starting with the calendar, one of the ways you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You look at the calendar.com and you look at what's already out there and how can you take it and pivot it to what you're doing in your dive center. And the reason I mentioned National Bubble Wrap Day is, can you imagine having your staff wearing bubble wrap jackets and hats and scarves and things? You have a little bubble wrap creation in your dive center, and then invite people over to blow push-to-pick soap bubbles, and then say, come and celebrate Bubble Wrap Day with us by blowing some bubbles here in our dive center and in our pool and on a dive. And you tie your promotion into everything bubbles, and shazam, you've got Gonzo.
Love it.
That's the definition. Great article, Cathryn. Thank you again. And you're speaking at DEMA. Tell everybody when your sessions are at DEMA. You're speaking this year.
That session is Thursday, November 13th at 10 a.m. And remember, I know a number of the people that contribute to Scuba Diving Industry Magazine are DEMA sponsored speakers. In order to go to our sessions, you must get the value added session of the educational package. So when you go to sign up for DEMA, if you haven't done it already, do it right now. Like stop what you're doing, make a note, get your DEMA attendance going, and make certain that you buy the educational package. And then you'll see me Thursday, November 13th at 10 a.m.
Thank you, Cathryn.
And I also have some other sessions as well. So,
Good.
All
Good
right,
job.
guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. So, Greg, now we go. Thank you. We go from almost to Portugal, across the ocean, across the United States, all the way to San Francisco. And we got to understand why Gil is playing a video in his background.
Yes. Well, he just traveled to Palau, from what I see on page 26 of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine. And so he's going to talk about planning the perfect group to that part of the world where you just came from. So I assume that's a video from Palau. Is that right, Gil? Or what?
That is correct. That is correct, Greg. Hey, everyone.
Tell us about it.
So I just wanted to show you a little bit of this video. This article, Palau was the furthest I'd ever traveled for anything, diving or just a vacation. From SFO, where I live, it was 14 and a half hours to Taiwan, a 7-hour layover, and then a 4.5-hour flight or 4-hour flight from Taiwan to Koror, Palau, which is where the airport is. So it's over 24 hours just to get there. And I was talking to some friends in New Zealand recently. I said, I could write an article for you for Dive Pacific about Palau. They said, well, they said from us, it's 24 to 34 hours. That's how far it is from everything. And I know Indonesia, like Raja Ampat, is a long way. But to get to the most pristine diving, you need to travel a long way. And I would never have done it alone. I went with a group out of San Diego, some dive buddies of mine. And this article is an overview of how to plan, or it gives an overview, non-biased, based on Google reviews for the resorts and the liveaboards and the hotels and the dive shops, and prices per day for diving or staying at the hotel. And so it's a non-biased approach to helping people plan their own trip. If you're a dive shop, if you're a dive club, if you just have a bunch of buddies who want to go, it gives an overview of that. And this video was shot by one of the dive masters on one of the 2 boats my group of 12 was on. And the dive shop was so generous, they just gave it to us. But it encapsulates the beauty, the pristineness, the visibility, the diversity of all the different places. And this shot here of the German Channel is just, it encapsulates how beautiful it is. You kneel on the sand, you watch these huge 10 to 12 foot across giant Atlantic manta rays float by, and they're like air traffic control, one after the other after the other. So it's just an amazing place to be, and it's still among the most desirable and most pristine dive sites in the world. So that's what the article's all about.
On my list, that's for sure. Have you been to that part of the world, Willie, yourself, or no?
I have not, and it's definitely on my bucket list. In fact, our cover from July, which is on my, I don't know which side it is for you folks, but I'm pointing to right now, is a photo taken by the dive shop owner that he went to, which is Neko Marine, and they generously supplied this photo. And in fact, it's the daughter-in-law of the owner is in the photo. And we're having them next week on our show. And I also want to point out 2 things. Your clownfish photo came out spectacular too, by the way, on page 26, and your giant manta on 27 is beautiful. So nice job on that too.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Hi, Carlos. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Also in the article, there are 50 dive sites in Palau, and I also summarized 8 or 10 of them in the article so whoever is planning your trip should know that you should go to the Oolong Channel, you should go to the German Channel, you should go to Chandelier Caves, which is kind of a unique dive site, and a little information about why each one is so interesting to visit.
Love it. Well,
Thank
like
you,
I said,
Gil.
it's on my list, as well as probably 99% of every diver listening right now. It's right up there with the best of the best as far as the stories and videos that we've seen over the years. All right.
Spectacular.
You made reference to Carlos, but we're going to hold off to travel to Venezuela in just a bit.
He just joined us a little late. We're going to talk to him a little later on in the show. So we're going to go from California all the way across the United States back over to Rocky Hill, Connecticut.
Jeff Cinciripino. Yeah, that's how you say it. Yeah, Jeff.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, he has an article on page 34, adaptive diving in retail, seeing the possibilities for your dive shop. So how can you make adaptive diving profitable from a retail side for a dive shop there, Jeff?
Yes. When I owned the dive shop, we'd always talk a little bit about offering adaptive diving, and I was always apprehensive about it. I think I was scared. I was scared about what that meant and how that would really come about. But one of the things to overcome that fear this year, I decided to get involved a little bit with the adaptive diving, and I went on a trip with Dive Pirates down to Cayman Brac, where I volunteered to help out.
Right.
And that opened my eyes. that opened my eyes to a lot of things. First thing is that the world isn't set up for people with disabilities, with physical disabilities. It's just hard to get around and things like that. And then the other thing that I recognized is that while I was afraid, the people with the adaptive needs, they were just so brave about getting in the water, about doing things, happy. And what they became when they got in the water was a diver, a scuba diver. No more adaptive, no more challenges. They were a scuba diver, and they were free from their wheelchair, free from the pain that they were experiencing. So that got me thinking a little bit about, well, the scuba diving industry is naturally one that gives back. And dive shops are in locations where there's probably a VA hospital close by, where there are people with physical disabilities or other challenges, or rehabilitation facilities that could uh, represent an opportunity for getting new divers into the sport. And oh, by the way, those adaptive divers have buddies who are going to get into the sport with them. So it's now becoming a very inclusive uh, operation at the dive center. And the other thing about it is that you don't have to do it alone as a dive center. There are plenty of organizations out there that you can work with as a dive shop and affiliate with. For example, there's Patriots for Disabled Divers out of Virginia, Muriel and Jeff Currier, who own that or run that. Then there's the Dive Hard organization, Jim Elliott. And then you've got Adaptable, another organization. I'm familiar with Dive Pirates because that's what I went with and had a great time down in Cayman Brac and helping out. And I got my certification as an adaptive dive buddy with them while I was down there. So here's how Dive Pirates works. If you're affiliated with them and you have an instructor who's able to teach adaptive diving at your shop, someone can apply for one of their scholarships. And if they're selected, Dive Pirates funds the whole thing for them and their buddy and buys their gear, and it runs it all the way through the shop. So it's a way that you can now offer other adaptive programs and also be affiliated with an organization that can help you out. The other thing that's interesting about this is that you may have customers who are your regular divers who may also be interested in learning more about adaptive diving. So you can certify them as adaptive dive buddies and allow them to help and go on these other trips. So, I was always fearful of it. I was always fearful of bringing that adaptive capabilities into the dive shop, wondering if we could do it, wondering if we couldn't. I got to tell you, I wish I had spent a little more time looking at that and getting it into the organization. And for all the people going to DEMA, they're all going to be there. All these organizations are going to be at DEMA. So make a plan to go and see them. Go see Dive Hard. Go see Adaptable, or go see Dive Pirates, or the disabled Patriots for Disabled Scuba. There's probably going to be more than that there. So you can get the information, figure out what you want to do, and then move forward. We want to be inclusive. And my God, these folks that do this, I couldn't believe the courage that they displayed in getting into the water. We fear getting into the water. Think about getting into the water when you can't use your legs or your arms,
Right.
or you only have one arm. So I think I took the slogan from Dive Pirates is, they no longer see disabilities, they see possibilities. And that's why I wanted to write this article for the dive shops to say, you can see the possibilities too by offering adaptive diving.
And Jeff,
Absolutely.
Jeff, wouldn't you say that, there's an emotional profitability to doing it? I mean, not everything is sometimes about the dollar, but this is something that's important, and they can help their community by doing this, and they will benefit. They will absolutely benefit, at least emotionally, for sure.
Absolutely. It was an incredible experience. I'm going back down. I'm going back down with Dive Pirates next year. I think they're going to Bonaire. So as soon as they put that out there, I'll be signed up. My wife and I, we're going down there and we're going to help out again and watch them thrive.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
that's
just
fantastic.
the joy of teaching someone how to dive, and you see that expression on a new
Mhm.
diver's face after they've reached that point where they go, "Oh my God, I can do this! Thank you so
Yeah.
much," and you feed off of that joy. It's like tenfold when you're doing it with someone who has challenges that we can't even, relate to.
Right.
And you
Very,
say it's
very well said.
inspiring, right? It's
Very,
definitely,
very well said.
yeah.
Thank you again, Jeff. Great article, by the way. So now we go from straight down I-95 to our good friend,
Alex
Dr.
Brylske.
Dr. Alex.
Yeah. So,
Hey, guys.
Alex, in the latest issue of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine, page 12, Oceanography, and for dive pros, or The Earth in Motion is the name of the article. So why is it important for dive pros and their students to know about this, Alex?
Well, if you've been reading the magazine for a while, for about the past 4 or 5 issues, I've been on a soapbox trying to explain how improving customer experiences through better environmental education is really something we need to, I think, embrace more so. And when I talk about environmental knowledge to dive professionals, they typically assume that means I need to learn more about the critters and the ecosystems I'm going to encounter, which is true, but it's not enough. And it's not enough because we need to understand the ocean holistically. And studying the ocean, of course, is oceanography. And what is often not understood specifically is that there are 4 subdisciplines within oceanography. One is biological oceanography, which is not marine biology, and I address that in a later uh, installment. There's physical oceanography, which explains the movement of the ocean. There's chemical oceanography, which obviously explains about the chemical processes, et cetera. And there's also geological oceanography. And these 4 subdisciplines, uh, pause for brief commercial announcement, are really highlighted in the first 4 chapters of my book. And so what I've decided to do is write, a short article just kind of giving the overview of what those fields are all about, and of course encouraging people to buy my book and learn more about it, because I do cover it in the book about to the degree that you'll find in a lower level college textbook. So again, let's take a look at the issues. Why is it important, et cetera. If you don't understand the concept of plate tectonics and how the Earth literally moves, the Earth, in a sense, is alive. It's constantly moving due to the processes that are happening beneath the Earth. And you say, well, what's that got to do with the ocean? Well, it has a lot to do with the ocean because it explains the physical character of the ocean. I'll give you some examples. Cathryn, who unfortunately left us, in the Azores and Iceland, where I think Dan Orr is right now.
Yeah.
Both of those are a result of volcanic eruptions in the mid-ocean ridge. And it's that you wonder why these strange appearances occur in the Atlantic Ocean. In fact, in Iceland, you've all heard about probably the Silfra fissure, where you can put your hand on the American plate on one side and the Eurasian plate on the other side. And to me, at least as a coral reef biologist, it also explains the coral triangle. The coral triangle is the most biodiverse region on the entire Earth. And the reason it is the ridges, the ring of fire, as it's called, those spreading centers were manipulated around, and over the course of Earth's ice ages, et cetera, it allowed those species to survive, and their evolution was not disrupted. And secondly, the isolation it created allowed for this unbelievable speciation. So much of what the ocean presents to us is a result of what the Earth itself has enabled it to do. And I think it's just a general area of information that's not really highlighted a lot, certainly in scuba courses. So as I said, this is the first of 4, and we'll continue on with the rest of the chapters subsequently.
So,
Love-
Alex, you've taught a lot of people, far more than I have, but turning out an instructor that can teach a program, follow a curriculum is one thing, but to turn an instructor into somebody that can give a knowledgeable dive briefing about the ocean or about the dive site, is really rare, and so valuable. And I think this is part of your underlying message since you first started writing for us a year and a half ago, is that a dive shop owner, a dive instructor, a dive master needs to know far more than just what the training agency teaches them. They need to understand their craft, and they understand their craft is understand the ocean. So, I think everybody should buy this book. If you don't have this book, if you don't have Alex's book in your dive shop, he's got a great deal to get him ordered for your shop. Just reach out to him. There's also a little sidebar at the very end of his article on page 14, which I found fascinating. And it turns out that Peter Symes, a good friend and writer over at X-Ray, did a whole expose on this field. How do you pronounce that vent field in
I
Iceland?
cannot speak Icelandic.
Threiten vent field, something like that. But you can actually dive on it. It's as shallow as 50 feet of water, which is really incredible. And the photos I've seen are just unbelievable. So thank you, Alex. This series is so valuable and so needed. And I think you're on the right track completely.
Go.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Well, off out of Florida and into Michigan.
So let me
yeah.
set up our next speaker before you introduce him. So we were at DEMA last year, and this nice couple walks up and said, "Hey, can you change the name on our magazine subscription?" We bought a dive shop, and we said, "Really?" And so it's ensued into an on-aisle conversation about they're both professionals. They decided to just kind of toss New York City and come move to Michigan to be closer to family and buy a dive shop out of the blue. And so they've been kind enough to not only come on to our show that Britton mentioned from behind the counter and talk about that experience, but they're writing about it. And they're writing their second features has just come out in July. Third feature is going to hopefully come out in September's issue. But it is really quite an amazing story. So, Michael, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule, running your diving empire there in Grand Rapids, to talk to us a little about your article. And Jeff, you can go ahead and give them the intro.
Okay. Well, or Greg, either one.
Greg, sorry.
It's okay. I mean, I didn't want Jeff to jump in there. He might.
It's almost happy hour.
Yes, it is. Page 18, the Giant Stride Part 2, how we took the plunge into dive shop ownership. So, Michael, tell us about your experience of buying a dive shop and what folks need to consider if they want to take that dive path. What do you think?
Yeah, I'll kind of touch on a couple points. The first is a lot of us come into this industry because we want to share something that we love with other people and introduce them to the amazing thing that is scuba diving. And if you think about how you want to make a career out of that, beyond becoming an instructor, you could, launch your own kind of dive shop, start from scratch, or you could look at buying an existing dive shop. And the benefits of buying an existing dive shop are just so much greater, right? You get to start with your rental inventory, with the compressor, with potentially a pool. You get the brand name, the customer list, everything that's needed to really run a business from day one when you buy a shop. And so I'm a big fan. I think that that's kind of the approach that anyone should take if they are looking to kind of move further along into the industry. And we had considered buying a dive shop. We were living in New York City and kind of ready to move on to our next phase. And so I started to just kind of cold email dive shop owners in the Grand Rapids, Michigan area, because that's where we wanted to end up settling down. And there are quite a few shops here in Michigan. We do a ton of Great Lakes wreck diving out here. So had plenty to reach out to. And the former owner of American Dive Zone responded to my email where I was basically saying, hey, have you thought about, what your retirement plan is and who's going to carry on the legacy that you've spent the last 25 years building? And that kind of kicked off our conversation to get on the phone, get to know each other a little bit. My partner, Rachel, and I flew out and met with the former owner, sat down and kind of heard his story and what he had built and some of the challenges that he had, but also a lot of the successes that he had had. And we talked about how do we continue to grow the brand, which is American Dive Zone, into something that is long lasting. And so that kind of kicked off the whole conversation around buying this dive shop. And we came to an agreement around what the terms of the deal would be, and then spent about 6 months doing our final diligence, pulling together the financing for the deal, doing all the legal documentation, all of that fun stuff, and ended up closing on the transaction in May of 2024, which was right at the start of busy season for us. So it was definitely jumping into the fire with both feet, and it's worked out really well. The former owner had a ton of knowledge in his head about how to run the business, and it's a challenge I've seen with a lot of small businesses where nothing is documented. And so we had the owner stay on for 6 months in a consulting role, where he was in the shop with us, training us, teaching us, here's the kind of quirks on dealing with different customers, on how he sells, on how he deals with the community. And that, I think, went a long way in setting us up for success. And the really neat thing is he is still very involved in the shop, just in a teaching capacity. So he gets to do all the fun parts of dive shop ownership, of, engaging with the community, going on local dive trips, teaching. And Rachel and I handle all of the back office stuff, dealing with customers, running the shop, and then I obviously teach as well. So that's kind of how we got started with this. And I'd say in my article, I talk a little bit about, what does it take to actually complete the acquisition? Let's say that you found someone who's ready to pass that torch to the next person. What are some considerations that you should be thinking about? And I think the biggest one is really understanding that, hey, you are going into business. You're no longer, if you're moving from that instructor role, your responsibilities aren't, hey, show up, make sure that the students have a great time, learn the skills that they need to get their certification and continue on. It's really about, how do we ensure that they have a great customer journey throughout the entire time they're in contact with your shop? It's about, how do we manage our inventory to make sure that we are carrying the right stuff that supports our customers and that moves well. It's about understanding, how do we market to bring in new customers? How do we market to bring customers from, potentially other shops to our business? And so there's a lot of different things that you have to think about when you are thinking about going into the dive shop business. And I encourage anyone who is interested in going that route to start to learn some of those business skills that will make you successful in being a dive shop owner. So that's kind of that quick spiel. And then as it relates to doing the deal itself, one of the first things that I talk about that you really want to dig into is just understanding the financials and the cash flow, because at the end of the day, this is something that you're using to support yourself, and the numbers have to make sense, right? Passion doesn't pay the rent; it's the cash flow that does. And so you want to make sure that you understand, okay, where is this cash coming from? What are the key things that are driving revenue? Is it primarily gear sales? Is it primarily training? Is it travel? And then what are you spending the money on? Where does it go? And just making sure that there is enough cash there to be able to pay yourself, pay your staff, and pay your vendors. So digging into that and understanding that up front goes a long way in making sure that you don't put yourself in a bad position by creating a deal that, makes it too difficult for you to pay off the debt, for example, or to be able to pay yourself. So that's kind of one key point that I think a lot of people should be aware of. The other thing is understanding, why does this business, this dive shop you're looking at, why do they exist? Why do they win over their competitors? Because you want to have a clear understanding of what your core kind of competitive advantages are, so that you can continue to leverage those to grow the business and grow the brand name. And then the last thing I'd touch on is planning that transition, right? Making sure that it is a smooth handoff between the former owner and yourself. And you can get through that by, one, working at the dive shop. If it's a shop that you're already thinking about, like, hey, I teach here, I'd like to end up, continuing the legacy down the road. Hey, how can you get involved in the operational side of things? If it's something brand new, where you're approaching a dive shop owner that lives in a completely different state than you, like Rachel and I did, then it's about getting that owner to stay on and teach you the ropes so that you feel comfortable, and also documenting everything. That was one thing that we came in and started doing right away, was writing down step by step, here's how you do everything. If a customer calls to do their advanced open water, here's what they need to know. Here's the script that you give them. Doing all of those things really, one, make sure that you are on the same page, but it also helps you train up your staff so that you can take vacations. You can go on those dive trips, or you could spend the time when you're in the shop working on the business instead of in it behind the counter dealing with customers every day. It allows you to really do additional kind of value added work. And I think if you look at those couple different areas along the way, it can help really set you up for success.
Thank you, Michael.
Absolutely.
Great article. And on page, just so you know, on page 19, he has a 10-point checklist for acquiring a dive shop. So it's really, really well written, the article. Go check it out. And thank you to Rachel as well. I'm sorry she couldn't join us today.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, it's off to Venezuela, I believe, isn't it?
We
Willie?
are. We're going to stop in Caracas to say hi to our very good friend and excellent writer and representative for our magazine in Latin America, Carlos Lander.
Carlos, welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah. So
Hello,
page
how are you?
20 of the latest issue, reaching the right audience, why every dive business needs business-to-business advertising. So what is the difference? Business to business or business to consumer? Do you need both? Do you need one more than the other, or what, Carlos? What do you think?
Well, first, apologize. I'm not at the office. I'm the pool in the middle of the forest. But if you hear me well,
We
Yes,
do.
you're great.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Well, there are a couple of things that we need to mention. One is the target audience, that in a B2B magazine, you're talking about dive business, retailer, distributors, resort, service providers. So you are focusing in that type of business, and that's the value. You're focusing on them. Instead, in a consumer magazine, you're talking to individual divers or enthusiasts. So the focus, the messages is completely different. One, will be in the B2B magazine, it will be a business value, the profit margins, reliability, partnerships, long-term relationships. That is the most important, that you build a network that you can trust on. That is very important. And the other, if you're talking about a consumer magazine, you're talking a lifestyle, adventure, fun, product futures. So it's completely different. And the thing is that you're talking about the decision makers. When you are building relationship with other businesses, there are a multiplying effects in what you are putting into in terms of money, in terms of monetary value. So they will contact, for example, if you have dive centers, you're talking about the instructors as well, and then they will multiply your efforts, because they will talk to the consumer, to the final consumer. So it's like a tree. You have the main branch, and the consumer value will be end after they pass through a series of businesses all the way up to the end, and that's a multiplying effect that you have in there. So, and one thing you have to take into account is the content style, a completely different when you are publishing or advertising in a B2B magazine. Is more formal, informative, educational, and it's focusing in the history insights. Instead, if you're talking with a consumer magazine, you are talking about more persuasive ads. So that's completely different. But at the end, we're talking about building a network, a trust that you can do in a consumer magazine. What do you think about, Cline?
Well, excellent. Well said. What I like to tell companies is that it doesn't do you any good to advertise in a consumer magazine if you have no distribution system for your product. If they walk into a local store and they say, "I'd sure like to buy that new Scuba Pro computer or that new Sherwood computer," or take that vacation down to Anthony's Key Resort, and the retailer says, "Well, that's great, but where we went was da 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 da," or what we sell is this. So it is important to have both of them in hand, to be honest with you. And thank you, Carlos. It's an excellent article, and we appreciate your help and writing as well. Which kind of brings us up to the very
Last but not least, or last but not best.
Well, last but not least, it's a couple of things I want to cover. First of all, if you are listening to this and you have any interest, the Cayman Islands Department of Tourism is hosting the International Scuba Diving Hall of Fame award ceremony on the 20th of September on Grand Cayman. I happen to wear another hat, and there is their executive director. It's an open invitation. Anybody can come. It's a great celebration of our leaders in our industry this year. Jacques Cousteau's first wife, Simone Cousteau, is receiving the Early Pioneer Award. Obviously, we're trying, I believe Jean-Michel himself may be able to show up and to receive it. We have Michelle Cove, which her and her husband Stuart founded Stuart Coves. Margot Payton received it last year, and she has agreed to be our keynote speaker for the event. And we have Ann Hassan, which her and her husband Wayne, of course, founded the Aggressor Fleet. And then we have this now owned by Wayne Brown. And then the last person is Rosalind Lund from the UK, a woman that's been a pioneer in tech diving for decades. The early award, a pioneer award, or early trailblazer awards going to a woman named Heidi Hu out of Hong Kong that's been responsible for cleaning a lot of harbors in that part of the world. So it's all woman group of inductees. The Women Divers Hall of Fame is being inducted as well. So it's a great function. The last thing I want to close with is on page 11, I wrote an article called Octopus Strategy for Dive Pros. And it's a series. It's a second in a multi-part series on kind of observing marine life and making business applications from how they adapt. And there's a long arm octopus on the cover of our magazine here by Marty Snyderman. It was shot in Bonaire. It's a blackwater shot. It almost looks like an alien. But I wrote an article that kind of deals with how a dive pro or a dive shop owner does have to be an octopus with 8 arms and doing many things, multitasking constantly, and how to keep from getting overwhelmed. So check that out on page 11 if you get time. Next month, Greg, we've got Dan Orr continuing a series on looking at safety stops. Al Hornsby, one of the most brilliant writers in our industry, has probably litigated more cases in diving than anybody on this planet, with decades as Patty's chief legal counsel, or not counsel, but legal advisor. He's not an attorney, but he was at the corporate level. And he's been writing these great one-pagers all on diving accidents, how they could have been prevented by some simple steps. He's going to continue that. We've got Alex's continued series on chemistry of the seas, which I'm looking forward to. David and Lily are writing some great stuff that's relative to the DEMA show coming up. So our September issue is our pre-show issue. So look for it coming out on the 30th this month. And Britton, do you have anything you want to close with?
Absolutely. I do want to swing it to Gil. I think he had some pretty important stuff that he wanted to mention. So Gil, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Yeah, thanks, Britton. Yeah, also next month, I'm going to write an article about Blue Friday 5.0. And I first wrote about Blue Friday last October, I believe. And this year, my goal is to get more and more divers and more countries involved. So, for example, Greg, you were in the Maldives recently.
Yes.
I sent an email the other day. Please reach out to your dive shop there, ask if they will participate, and give them my email. Jeff and Michael, if you're going to be taking people from your dive shops or your area on a trip over Thanksgiving, or if you're going to give pool lessons that weekend, take a picture and show it to me. Carlos, you've already expressed interest.
Gil, why don't you tell everybody what it actually is?
I'm
sorry.
Blue Friday is diving on Black Friday. So don't go to the malls. Don't throw elbows and try to get that present for Christmas that everyone's trying to get.
Or make it Black and Blue Friday. How about that?
There you go.
So don't shop, dive on Black Friday. And more people are doing it. I'm going to get Nico Marine to participate. They've already said they would. Alex is gone, but anyone who knows anyone who's going on a trip over that time, have them contact me. There'll be more information in the next article. Thank you.
Love it.
Thanks,
Thank you, Gil.
Yeah. All right, Britton, what do you got coming up for the pre-DEMA show issue? Is that what you want to talk about or what?
I just wanted to swing it to Gil. I wanted to make sure everybody got what they needed chatted about. But that about does it for me.
Okay, that sounds good.
Gil, do you have one more comment?
Yeah. And Willie, you have a swimming pool that you call the Redneck Riviera. I want you to take video of Britton diving in your pool on the day after Thanksgiving, because that's perfect.
You better talk to the big man above, because it gets really cold sometimes here after Thanksgiving, but we'll see.
On the dry suit there. But,
Yeah.
Just jump in the water and get out. But give me a picture.
That sounds great. Hey,
It'd be so perfect.
thanks everybody for a great show and for all the information and for the great articles, great contributions. So Greg, that's going to wrap it up for this month.
All right. Well, once again, I am Greg the Divemaster. Check out Scuba Radio every Saturday, 3 to 5 Eastern time till next Level Up podcast. Remember, it's always better down where it's wetter. That's it.
Finally got.
This has been Level Up, the podcast of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine. Produced by Scuba Radio and the Cline Group. For more info, go to scubadivingindustry.com.